Part 1, Chapter 1 Preview of Slaves and Exiles by Margaret Gaffney, published by All Things That Matter Press.
Chapter 1. "Come on, Gabriel," Ewan said excitedly, motioning to the person behind him. "We're almost there." "Where, sir?" Gabriel asked. He pointed to some lights amidst the trees on the other side of the chasm. "Across the ravine, that's it." Gabriel stared into the distance only briefly before turning to more practical concerns. "I see. My lord, how do you wish to cross?" "I saw a bridge on the map a little way down. Let's get going." Turning east, they began to skirt the cliff and look for the crossing. Pushing back branches and slicing with their swords those they couldn't move, the men soon came upon a rotted bridge that was missing more boards than it had. Ewan sighed when he saw it. "That's a shame. I was hoping to not have to transport so near a settlement." "It is unfortunate," Gabriel agreed, "but we are not using this bridge." His master laughed as he put a hand on his friend's shoulder. "My lord, you can actually see the other side, correct?" Ewan's laugh faded as a flash of light surrounded them. They materialized on the other side seconds later in woods like those from which they had come. "You have to admit," Ewan began, "traveling with me does make life easier." Gabriel rolled his eyes. "You do know how cruelly ironic that is, don't you, O Prince of the Curé?" "Hush! Next time you can cross the bridge and I'll transport alone," Ewan said in mock offense. They continued on the path which led them to a collection of buildings. However, the only one showing any signs of life was a little tumble-down tavern. As they drew near, both men caught a scent that didn't bode well for the respectability of the establishment. "Temio," Gabriel said disdainfully. Ewan sighed. "Yes, there must be a large demand here in a slave town like this." "Poor fools," his companion muttered. "Perhaps the owner has a shed we can sleep in." "Yes, hopefully," Gabriel agreed. He didn't care where they slept, so long as it had a roof and did not smell of the highly addictive drug. A fat man smoking from a thin pipe left the tavern as they approached. He blew a puff right into Gabriel's face, making the servant cough. The man cackled and walked down the street. "What a promising introduction," Gabriel grumbled. Ewan smiled sadly at his friend's discomfort and pushed open the door. The room was bursting with tables surrounded by individuals of all ages. Most were too engrossed in their card games to notice the newcomers, and the few who did look up lost interest when they realized they were unfamiliar faces. Every time a right wrist was exposed, a large black S was visible, allowing for no doubt about the enslaved status of every person in the room. The bar itself was in the back corner, an L shape that enclosed a middle-aged man in a dirty apron. He was leaning over the short length of the counter and laughing as he filled a woman's cup. When he turned around, the sight of the men made his expression turn serious. "Good evening," Ewan said pleasantly. "Do you have a place for us to bunk for the night?" The barkeeper looked from Ewan to Gabriel, then back to Ewan, but said nothing. "We have no friends here," Ewan explained, "but we'd appreciate a roof over our heads for the evening." "I'm sorry, sir," the barkeeper said nervously. "I'd of course be happy to provide for you on behalf of my master, but I don't have the resources here to give you a proper place to sleep. Please do not take this as any kind of slight. A simple cabin or even a shed would do nicely," Gabriel interrupted, ignoring the reproving glance of his companion. "I'm certain your master would not wish for you to turn away guests." "No, of course not," the barkeeper agreed in agitation. "If your master should wonder why we're here, we'll explain," Ewan assured him kindly. "I unfortunately only have an attic to suit your purposes, but that's hardly a place for folks such as yourselves. If you really are intent on staying, I could fetch my master and find a better place." "Don't trouble yourself with that," Gabriel interrupted again, a little more sharply. "We only want a place to sleep." The barkeeper, used to yielding quickly to harsh treatment, bowed low and began to untie his apron. As he came around the side of the bar, Ewan said to him quietly, "Please forgive my friend. He's tired from traveling." "Yes, my lord. No, my lord. Please follow me." Fetching a lantern, the barkeeper weaved his way around the tables to a dark hallway in the back corner that led immediately onto a narrow stairwell. The attic at the top consisted of one room, narrowly vaulted. "Thank you. This will be fine," Ewan said. "Don't trouble yourself about food or cots. We have everything we need." "Your humble servant, my lord," the barkeeper answered, bowing. "If you should be needing anything—" A loud commotion suddenly erupted downstairs. The barkeeper murmured something under his breath and huffed a long-suffering sigh. "I apologize for the noise, my good sirs," he said. "I promise you this won't last all night. If you'll be wanting anything, I'm Bernard." With that he hurried down, shaking his head at the oddness of Curé. When he was gone, Gabriel set down his pack and unrolled his blanket. "He seems to be a decent sort."
Yes, Ewan agreed, sitting down. But Gabriel, you must refrain from using that high-handed way of speaking. You mean when I mentioned his master? I'm sorry, my lord, I didn't want to be condescending, but I'm exhausted. You could do with some patience, my friend. With all due respect, my lord, you could do with some practicality. You see how confused you make them. It doesn't seem right when they receive treatment like that from a curus. They don't know what to do, and you look suspicious. I won't be anything less than polite to them, Gabriel. I'm sure they think nothing more than that I'm a very strange sort. You're wrong. Very likely they'll never forget the one curus who treated them with a moment's worth of kindness. Ewan paused for a moment, his crooked smile slowly growing on his face and giving his blue eyes warmth. Then they'll remember me when I free them, and they'll know even in their slavery I was with them. Gabriel sighed, shaking his head at his master's optimism. He stretched out onto his blanket and folded his arms under his head. We need to be careful not to cause any commotion here. It'll only make finding Her Highness more difficult. I know, Ewan answered as he prepared his own bed. Where will we start tomorrow? Same as always. Try to learn something of the situation in this town, see who the largest slave owner is, and if there are any other cure here, prominent or otherwise. If we can find the guardian first, it'll make the introduction smoother. What do you think the princess will be like? I'm trying not to form any expectations, Ewan replied simply. What? Gabriel asked, leaning up on his arm. You don't think she'll be willing to help us? I didn't say that. Hopefully she's been waiting for this opportunity as long as us, but I don't know. The only things we're certain of are that she was alive 19 years ago and in the care of warrior Turthsemene. She may have no clue of who we are, let alone who she is, or what's happened to her family. Do you think that her guardian would keep from her that she's the Neath heir? No, I don't. If warrior Turthsemene is still watching over her, she can't be entirely ignorant. If she is, I'm prepared to tell her all that she has the right to know. He blew out the candle and laid down. The men's exhaustion allowed them to quickly fall asleep, despite the romping activity below. A few hours later, however, a noise sent vibrations through the walls and into the attic, waking Ewan, who sat up in the darkness and blinked several times. Gabriel was snoring beside him and didn't stir. Ewan tried to lay back down, but the noise had shocked him fully awake. He went downstairs and found the tavern bursting with more people than before. The commotion came from the farthest corner from the stairs. A group of slaves were gathered around a table, watching whatever game was progressing. Ewan walked over to the bar and surprised Bernard by ordering a beer.